My son's message arrived while I was wrapping a wooden train I had made for my grandson. Dad, Rebecca wants Christmas to be for close family only this year. Please don't come. We'll find another time after the holidays. I read it twice. At 73, I had learned that some sentences did not improve on a third reading. On the kitchen table beside my coffee sat a notice from my bank. A transfer of $2,150 was scheduled to leave my account the next morning and go toward the mortgage on Eric's house. I set down the red ribbon, opened my banking application, and canceled the transfer. At 8:07 the following morning, my phone rang. Eric did not ask whether I was hurt. He did not explain what close family meant or suggest that perhaps he had chosen the wrong words. He said, "Dad, what happened to the mortgage money?" That was when I understood that my absence from his table was inconvenient, but my absence from his bank account was an emergency. My name is Thomas Avery. I spent 46 years working as an electrician in and around Columbus, Ohio. For 23 of those years, I ran a small contracting company with 9 employees, 2 vans that started most mornings, and 1 van that needed prayer in cold weather. I never became rich, but I paid my people on Friday, kept my promises, and retired without owing anybody an apology or a dollar. My wife, Margaret, used to say that I trusted wiring diagrams more than human beings because wires behaved honestly. If a circuit was broken, it did not tell you it needed space. It simply stopped carrying current. We were married 48 years, and she was the person who translated the rest of the world for me. She knew when our son was frightened beneath his temper, and when I was wounded beneath my silence. Margaret died 3 years before that Christmas. Pancreatic cancer took 8 months to do what time had not managed in nearly half a century. After she was gone, the house did not feel empty so much as paused. Her gardening gloves stayed on a hook in the garage. Her blue mug remained on the second shelf. For the first year, I still turned toward her side of the bed whenever the furnace made an odd sound, as though she might have an opinion about it. Christmas had been her season. She started soaking fruit for cake before Thanksgiving and wrote every gift in a small green notebook so no grandchild received one more package than another. She owned a set of white china with a thin holly border, bought 1 plate at a time during the lean years. By the time Eric was 10, we finally had 12-place settings. Margaret treated those dishes with more care than I, gave some power tools. After she died, I kept the traditions as best I could. Eric, Rebecca, and their children still came each Christmas. Lucy was 12 that year, old enough to notice sadness but young enough to believe adults could repair it. Ben was 9 and fascinated by anything with wheels, which was why I had spent several evenings building him a wooden train. Eric was 44. As a boy, he had been quick to laugh and quicker to defend anyone being picked on. Somewhere in adulthood, that protectiveness had turned inward. He became preoccupied with looking successful, especially after he married Rebecca. She was not a cruel woman in the theatrical sense. She did not wake each morning wondering how to injure an old man. She simply arranged the world according to usefulness, appearance, and convenience. If somebody's feelings interfered with the picture she wanted, she cropped them out. 2 years earlier, Eric lost his sales management job when his company merged with a larger competitor. His severance covered 3 months. Their mortgage did not care. He called me one evening and tried to sound casual, but I could hear him tapping his thumbnail against the phone. He had done that since childhood whenever he was afraid. "I hate asking," he said. "We just need a bridge until I land somewhere." The mortgage payment was $2,150. I told him I would cover it for 6 months. That would protect the children, give him time to find work, and keep him from draining the small college accounts he and Rebecca had started. I had savings, a pension, Social Security, and no debt. Helping my son through a job loss seemed like one of the purposes of having been careful all my life. Margaret would have helped too. I was certain of that. What I failed to ask was how long she would have continued after he no longer needed help. Eric found another job in his 5th month. It paid slightly less at first, and he said they needed time to catch up. I extended the arrangement through the end of the year. In January, he mentioned medical bills. In March, the furnace needed replacing. By summer, the payments had become automatic, both at the bank and in our thinking. Every few months, I asked how things were going. "Better," he would say. "We're almost steady. Almost became a country with no border." I kept sending the money. There were warning signs, though I was talented at explaining them away. They replaced their kitchen counters. Eric said Rebecca had found a clearance deal. They took the children to Florida. He told me her parents had paid for most of it. A photograph appeared online showing him beside a fishing boat, one hand resting on the polished rail. When I asked about it, he laughed and said a friend had let him use it. I wanted to believe him because disbelief felt disloyal. That is one of the mistakes decent parents make. We confuse asking an adult child an honest question with failing to love the child we remember. The first real crack came the Sunday before Christmas. Lucy called while I was sanding the train. "Grandpa, do you still make that cinnamon apple thing Grandma used to make? Apple crisp?" "Yes. Mom says hers never tastes right. I told her I could bring one." There was a pause, followed by the muffled sound of a door closing. "Are you coming early or with everybody else?" she whispered. "Everybody else?" "Grandma and Grandpa Collins are coming at 2. Uncle Noah and Aunt Kim are coming. Dad's boss is coming too, but I'm not supposed to call him Dad's boss. And the Parkers. Mom said 20 people, but Ben says 19 because he doesn't count babies." I sat down on my work stool. Rebecca's parents, her brother, her friends, and Eric's employer were close family. I was apparently a distant branch despite paying for the tree. "Your dad hasn't told me the plan yet," I said. "He said you might go on a trip." There are lies told to protect children, and lies told to protect adults from what children might think of them. Eric's belonged to the second kind. That evening, he sent the message uninviting me. It did not say the house was crowded. It did not say Rebecca was overwhelmed. It said Christmas was for close family only. I slept poorly. Around 3 in the morning, I walked into the kitchen and turned on the small light over the stove. Margaret and I had sat at that table through layoffs, one miscarriage, Eric's broken arm, my father's funeral, and every foolish disagreement that seemed important until morning. I imagined telling her what had happened. She would not have shouted. Margaret rarely raised her voice. She would have pressed her lips together, taken off her glasses, and asked the question I had avoided for nearly 2 years. "Thomas, are you helping him stand up or helping him stay seated?" At 7:30, I canceled the transfer. At 8:07, Eric called. "Dad, the bank says the payment didn't come through." "That is correct." "Did you change accounts?" "No." "Then send it again. The mortgage draft's next week." His tone was not pleading. It was managerial, the voice he used when a restaurant had misplaced his reservation. "I won't be sending it again," I said. Silence lasted 3 seconds. "You're doing this because of Christmas?" Christmas made me look at an arrangement I should have reviewed a long time ago. "You promised to help us." "For 6 months. I have paid for 22. He lowered his voice. "We planned around that money. You should not have." He told me they had holiday expenses, a contractor's bill, and tuition due for a program Lucy wanted to attend. Then he reached for the weapon parents hand their children by loving their grandchildren. "Are you really going to ruin the kids' Christmas over one dinner?" "I didn't cancel Christmas, Eric. I canceled a payment that was never supposed to last this long." He exhaled sharply. "Rebecca was right. You always make things about yourself." I looked at the half-wrapped train. "Your wife did not send that message from your phone," I said. "You did." He hung up. An hour later, Rebecca called. I let it ring once before answering. She began with the careful patience people use when they believe age has made somebody confused. "Thomas, I think emotions are getting mixed up with finances." "I agree." She missed the point and continued. "This Christmas is important for Eric's career. His regional director is coming, and we need the evening to feel polished. It's not a normal family dinner." Then Eric could have said that. He didn't want to hurt you. He told his children I chose to go away. Another pause. We were trying to avoid drama. I almost admired the efficiency of it. They had removed me, lied about why, and called my reaction the drama. Rebecca said they had counted on the payment and asked whether I wanted the grandchildren to worry about losing their home. I knew enough about mortgages to understand that one stopped subsidy did not put a family on the sidewalk. Their payment was not even due for another week. They both had income. They had savings, though I did not yet know how much. What they lacked was room in the budget for every choice they had made while treating my money as part of their salary. "You will not lose your home because I stopped giving you $2,150 a month," I said. "You may have to change other plans." This feels like punishment. A boundary often feels like punishment to the person who benefited from there being none. Margaret had once said something similar to her sister. I had remembered it because it sounded like advice an electrician might understand. Rebecca's voice cooled. The children will be very disappointed. So am I. After the call, I drove to the bank. A young banker named Elena printed the transfer history. 22 payments. The total was $47,300. I stared at the number. It was not enough to bankrupt me, but it was enough to represent choices I had postponed. I had delayed replacing my truck. I had declined a trip with 2 old friends to Yellowstone. I had told myself those things were luxuries and helping family was not. Elena asked whether I wanted to block future transfers to that account. Yes, I said. It was a small word. It felt like lifting something heavy with muscles I had not used in years. On the way home, I stopped at a hardware store. Ray Donnelly, who had worked beside me for 31 years, was examining snow shovels as if selecting surgical equipment. He was 75 and had been a widower for 11 months. We had both become members of a club nobody requested, and everybody eventually joined. He asked about Christmas. I gave him the short version. Family only? Ray said. Whose family? Apparently there is a committee. That drew the first laugh I had managed all morning. Ray grew serious and pulled out his phone. He had seen Eric's photograph online a week earlier and assumed I knew. It showed my son standing beside the same fishing boat, holding a set of keys. The caption read, "Finally pulled the trigger. Early Christmas gift to myself after a record year." The post was dated in October. There are moments when anger arrives, hot and useful. Mine arrived cold. I did not shout or call Eric. I asked Ray to send me the picture and drove home under a sky the color of dirty wool. A record year. For 14 months, my son had been steadily employed. He had accepted raises, remodeled a kitchen, and purchased a boat while I continued paying his mortgage because he said they were almost steady. The exclusion from Christmas had hurt. The photograph clarified the structure beneath the hurt. I was not simply an unwanted guest. I was a resource expected to remain available after the relationship had been set aside. That afternoon, the family group chat began to fill. Rebecca's brother asked whether I was feeling well. Her mother wrote that she hoped misunderstandings could be put aside for the children. Then Eric posted a message long enough to sound reasonable. Dad has decided not to join us for Christmas and has also withdrawn financial help without warning. We are shocked and trying to protect Lucy and Ben from the stress. Please give us privacy. I read it once. Years earlier, I might have answered every sentence. Margaret used to stop me when I began composing legal briefs for family disagreements. Truth doesn't get stronger because you add paragraphs, she would say. So I posted 2 images. The first was Eric's message. Christmas is for close family only. Please don't come. The second was the original email from 2 years earlier in which he thanked me for offering 6 months of mortgage help. Underneath, I wrote, I did not decline Christmas. I accepted Eric's decision. The temporary support has now ended after 22 months. Then I muted the conversation. My sister-in-law called 10 minutes later. I did not answer. Rebecca's mother sent 3 messages and deleted 2. Ray texted, shortest service call you ever made. By Christmas Eve, the anger had settled into something sadder. I finished the train, wrapped Lucy's books, and placed both gifts under my tree. The house smelled faintly of pine and furniture polish. Margaret's green notebook lay in the top drawer of the sideboard. I opened it and found her last Christmas list. Beside Eric's name, she had written, "Good wool gloves. He never buys practical things." I sat there longer than I care to admit. At 6 that evening, Lucy called. "Grandpa, Dad says you're mad at us." "I am not mad at you or Ben." "Then why aren't you coming?" Children ask direct questions because adults have not yet trained them to prefer comfortable answers. "Your father asked me not to come," I said. "That is a grown-up disagreement, and it is not your fault. He said you wanted to be alone." I did not say that. I heard her breathing change. I hated placing truth in the hands of a 12-year-old, but the lie was already there. Pretending otherwise would only teach her that love required accepting whatever version was easiest for the person with more power. "Will we still see you?" "Of course. Your presents are here, and the train has all its wheels. I checked twice." She laughed a little. Ben said you might forget the wheels. That is slander. Tell him his legal team will hear from me. When we ended the call, I made a decision. I would not spend Christmas sitting beside an untouched place setting, waiting for my son to discover a conscience between dinner and dessert. Across the street lived Helen Brooks, 81, whose daughter was stationed overseas with the Air Force. Ray had planned to eat frozen lasagna while watching a football game he had recorded and would somehow still complain about as if it were live. I invited them both for dinner. Helen asked what she should bring. Nothing, I said. Then I am bringing pie. That sounds like nothing with crust. On Christmas morning, I cooked a small ham, potatoes, green beans, and Margaret's apple crisp. I had made it often enough beside her that my hands remembered what grief sometimes made my mind forget. Helen arrived in a red coat carrying pecan pie. Ray brought wine and a folding chair, although I owned 6 chairs. You never know, he said. We ate at the kitchen table. There were only 3 of us, and nobody photographed the food. Ray told an old lie about repairing a circuit with a chewing gum wrapper. We spoke about our spouses without lowering our voices. At 7, my phone displayed several missed calls from Eric. I did not return them during dinner. Later, I listened to the messages. The first demanded to know why I had embarrassed him in the family chat. The second said the mortgage company would charge a late fee. The third was quieter. Dad, call me. We need to fix this before Rebecca's parents leave. That sentence told me more than he intended. His urgency was not about the house. It was about maintaining the appearance that everything was under control. I sent one reply. I will speak with you on December 26th at my house, at 10. Bring Rebecca. Do not bring the children. They arrived 12 minutes early. Eric wore the wool coat I had given him the previous Christmas. Rebecca carried a leather folder. Neither removed a coat before sitting down, which gave the meeting the atmosphere of a delayed flight. Eric began. You humiliated us. I placed the bank statement on the table. I told the truth after you told the family I chose not to attend. You could have called me privately. You made the accusation publicly. Rebecca opened her folder and slid forward a household budget. She had highlighted the mortgage line in yellow. This is what happens without your transfer, she said. We are short. I studied the page. There were payments for the new countertops, a personal loan, 2 vehicle loans, private sports fees, and a monthly marina charge. Where is the boat payment? I asked. Eric's eyes shifted toward Rebecca. It is included in recreation. A record year, I said. He looked at me sharply. I placed the photograph from October beside the transfer history. Then I laid out all 22 payments in order. I did not need to raise my voice. The arithmetic did the work. I promised to help for 6 months, I said. I helped for 22. You found work, received a promotion, remodeled your kitchen, and bought a boat. At no point did you tell me you no longer needed my money. We did need it, Rebecca said. Our expenses grew. That is not the same thing. Eric leaned back and folded his arms. So this is punishment because you weren't invited? No. Not being invited finally made me understand what I had become to you. I was no longer your father. I was an automatic payment. He flinched, but pride reached his mouth before remorse. That is ridiculous. At 8:07 yesterday morning, you called me. What was the first thing you asked? He did not answer. You did not ask whether I was hurt. You asked where the mortgage money was. Rebecca said Christmas had been a business opportunity for Eric. His regional director had accepted at the last minute. Seating was limited, and my presence would have made the evening more personal than professional. You used Margaret's china, I said. They both went still. 2 weeks earlier, Rebecca had asked to borrow the holly pattern dishes because she wanted the children to feel connected to their grandmother. I had packed all 12 settings carefully and helped Eric load them into his car. Yes, Rebecca said. They made the table beautiful. My wife's chair was good enough for her dishes, but not for her husband. No one spoke for several seconds. Eric rubbed his forehead. Dad, it got out of hand. It got planned. You invited your in-laws, Rebecca's brother, friends, and your employer. You told my grandchildren I chose not to come. Then you sent me away while expecting me to pay for the house where the dinner was held. His face hardened again. Fine. We handled it badly. But you don't stop a mortgage payment with no warning. I slid the old email across the table. The subject line read, 6-month bridge. In Eric's reply, he had written, I won't let this become permanent. You had 16 months of warning, I said. Rebecca looked at Eric. I could see that she had not known the original wording. That did not excuse her, but it told me the dishonesty had layers. I explained my decisions. The monthly transfer was over. I would not pay the homeowner's insurance shortage I had covered the previous spring. I would not fund the remaining kitchen work. Any future help involving Lucy or Ben would be paid directly to a school, doctor, or program, never deposited into their parents' general account. Eric stood up. If that's how you feel, maybe you shouldn't see the kids for a while. The sentence landed harder than the Christmas message. I kept my hands flat on the table. Do not use my grandchildren to negotiate money. I'm not negotiating. Then sit down and listen. Perhaps it was the old tone I used on young apprentices reaching toward live panels. He sat. You are their father, I said. You decide who enters your home. I cannot stop you from keeping them away. But if you tell them I abandoned them, I will correct the lie every time I am given the chance. I will not purchase access to people I love. Rebecca stared at the budget sheet. What do you expect us to do? Live on your income? We would have to sell things. Most people begin with the boat. I told them I was not demanding repayment of the $47,300. I had given the money freely, even after I should have stopped. That mistake belonged to me. But no more would follow. I also asked for Margaret's china to be returned by the end of the week. Eric's expression changed then. For the first time, the anger dropped away, revealing shame. One of the serving pieces chipped, he said. It was the gravy boat. Margaret had searched 3 antique shops to replace the original after Eric broke it at age 15. The irony would have amused her eventually. It did not amuse me that morning. Return all of it, I said, including the chipped piece. They left without an apology. The next several weeks were quiet. Eric did not call. Lucy and Ben did not visit. I mailed their gifts with a note that said only, I love you. None of this is your fault. 2 days later, a photograph arrived from Lucy. Ben sat on the floor, pushing the wooden train while she held up one of her books. Behind them, the new kitchen looked large and bright. I saved the photograph. I did not mistake it for peace. From relatives, I heard fragments. Eric sold the boat in January, taking a loss large enough to wound his pride but not his future. They canceled the remaining kitchen work and moved some debt to a lower-interest loan. Rebecca picked up additional consulting work. The mortgage was paid 11 days late, with a fee. Nobody lost the house. Nobody missed a meal. The crisis had been the collapse of a lifestyle built partly on money they pretended not to need. I went to Yellowstone with Ray in May. We stood near a geyser in sleet while he complained that nature should publish a more precise schedule. I bought a used truck the following month and enjoyed a heater that worked. I also met with my attorney. I did not disinherit Eric in anger. Money had already occupied too much space between us. Instead, I placed the portion intended for Lucy and Ben into education trusts that would pay institutions directly. Eric remained in my will, but he would never again control funds meant for his children. Boundaries are more useful when they survive the mood that created them. In February, Rebecca returned Margaret's china. Every plate was wrapped in newspaper. The chipped gravy boat sat on top in a separate box. I'm sorry about this, she said. I thanked her for bringing it back. She stood on the porch as if waiting for me to invite her inside. I did not. An apology for an object was not an apology for a pattern, and I was no longer filling in missing words for other people. Before she left, she said, Eric isn't doing well. He knows my number. Another month passed before he used it. He came alone on a rainy Saturday. He looked older than he had at Christmas, though perhaps he had simply stopped arranging his face for an audience. I made coffee. We sat at the same kitchen table. I told the kids the truth, he said. I waited. I told them we asked you not to come. I told them you didn't choose to be alone. Thank you. Lucy was angry. She had a right to be. He nodded. For once, he did not defend himself quickly. Eric said the dinner had begun as Rebecca's idea to impress his regional director. When the guest list expanded, they decided I would make the evening feel too informal. I asked what that meant. You tell stories, he said. Most old men do. It is cheaper than golf. The corner of his mouth moved, then fell. You would have talked about when I was a kid. About Mom. About the old house. I wanted him to see me a certain way. As a man without a past? As a man who had made it on his own? There it was. He had excluded the person whose money contradicted the picture. Did you tell him who paid your mortgage? I asked. No. Did you tell him you bought the boat while I paid it? No. He stared into his coffee. I kept thinking the next raise would fix everything. Then we spent more. Every time you paid, it gave us room, so we filled the room. That was the first honest sentence he had given me in a long while. He apologized, but I did not rush to rescue him from the discomfort of it. He apologized for the message, for lying to the children, for the money, and for letting Rebecca borrow Margaret's china under false pretenses. He did not blame his wife. That mattered. I was ashamed that I needed help, he said. Then I got used to the help and became ashamed of you, seeing how much I still depended on it. Shame makes poor wiring, I said. People hide the junctions, then act surprised when the wall catches fire. He gave a tired laugh. You have an electrician speech for everything? Only the important things. He asked whether we could start again. No, I said. His head lifted. We can continue, I told him. Starting again would mean pretending none of this happened. I won't do that. I set 3 conditions. Money would not be part of our relationship. He would never threaten access to the children during a disagreement. And if he invited me somewhere, the invitation had to be genuine, not payment for keeping the peace. He agreed. Trust did not return because he agreed. Trust is built from uneventful Tuesdays, kept appointments, small truths, and behavior that continues after the emotion of an apology has faded. Eric began bringing the children by every other Sunday. At first, he stayed near the door, as though my house were a supervisor's office. Gradually, he came in for coffee. Lucy asked me directly why I had stopped paying for their home. I told her I had promised temporary help and had allowed it to continue too long. I did not tell her about the boat or the family chat. Children deserve truth, but not every adult detail. Were you trying to make us move? She asked. No. I was asking your parents to pay for the home they chose. She considered that. Dad sold the boat. I heard. Ben was sad for 2 days. That seems survivable. She smiled. In April, Eric began sending me $300 each month. The first transfer appeared without explanation. I called and told him I had not asked for repayment. I know, he said. I'm not trying to buy anything back. I just need to stop being the man who never returned what he could. I accepted the payments. Not because I needed them, and not because $300 a month would erase $47,300. I accepted them because responsibility sometimes begins with an amount small enough to sustain. Rebecca's apology came later, and with less grace. She cried, defended herself, admitted only half of what mattered, then tried again 2 weeks later. The second time, she said something useful. I treated your help like proof that our choices had no cost. I told her forgiveness was possible, but closeness would take longer. She did not like that answer. She accepted it anyway. By autumn, our family had reached a place that was neither repaired nor broken. Eric called without needing money. Rebecca returned, borrowed things before I asked. Lucy joined her school orchestra, and I paid the program directly for a used violin after both parents asked rather than assumed. Ben and I built a station for the wooden train. In October, a cream-colored envelope arrived in my mailbox. Inside was an invitation to Christmas dinner at Eric's house. There were no printed gold letters, no guest dress code, and no mention of his regional director. At the bottom, Eric had written, Dad, I am inviting you because you are my father. Please come at noon. Your chair is beside Lucy and Ben. I called him. Who else is coming? I asked. Rebecca's parents, her brother, and us. 9 people. Does a baby count? He laughed. Lucy had clearly told him about the previous year's arithmetic. Only if the baby pays the mortgage. The joke might once have angered me. This time, it sounded like a man learning to look directly at his mistake. He'll come, I said. On Christmas morning, I packed Margaret's apple crisp into the truck. I did not bring the holly china. Some things need a quiet year at home. When I arrived, Eric opened the door before I reached the porch. He took the dish from my hands and did not make a speech. Rebecca hugged me, briefly and without forcing warmth that had not fully returned. Lucy pulled me toward the table. My place was beside hers. Ben had set a small wooden train car above my plate as a name card. There were only 9 chairs, but nobody had been removed to make the table look better. Before we ate, Eric stood. His face was red. "I need to say one thing," he began. I shook my head. "You already said it to the people who needed to hear it." He looked at Lucy and Ben. They knew the truth. That was enough. Public shame would not improve private accountability. We ate roast turkey, potatoes, green beans, and an apple crisp slightly darker on one side because my oven had developed opinions. Rebecca's father asked about Yellowstone. Eric told a story from his childhood before I could. Lucy rolled her eyes at both of us. Nothing dramatic happened. No one begged. No one revealed a hidden fortune. The mortgage had been paid from Eric and Rebecca's account for 12 straight months. My $300 repayments continued. Trust was returning in ordinary installments. After dinner, Ben sat on the floor with the train. Eric joined him and tried to connect two cars backward. I watched my son study the little brass hooks, patient with a problem he could not solve by pretending it was not there. I thought about the message that had arrived 1 year earlier. Christmas is for close family only. For a long time, I believed love meant keeping a door open no matter how somebody entered. Margaret understood better. Love can open a door, but dignity decides what is allowed to cross the threshold. Canceling that payment did not save my money. Most of the $47,300 was already gone. It did not give me the satisfaction of watching my son fail. I never wanted him to fail. It gave us something less dramatic and more valuable. A relationship that no longer depended on me financing the version of himself he wanted other people to see. My son thought canceling one invitation would cost me a Christmas dinner. Instead, it cost him the privilege of treating my love like a monthly payment. Money had kept his house comfortable. Boundaries were what finally gave our family a chance to become honest.